Hey everyone, I'm Rookus, and this is going to be my Limbo AGDQ 2018 submission. I'm just going to be playing a video of my current PB for the normal any percent route, so I'm going to start that up now. And I'm just going to be dubbing over some commentary of what I think is relevant to the run, and hopefully say some things that would convince someone that's watching the submission of why I think that Limbo is a game that would fit into the marathon well, and the merits of Limbo speedrunning. So Limbo is a game that was released back in 2010. It's a puzzle platforming game. It has a very dark atmosphere, and it has some nice audio. I had to turn the audio off just so I can dub over this commentary, which is kind of unfortunate. I just don't want my past self interrupting me, so I'm just gonna be watching Limbo and then hopefully explain some tricks. As you can see now, I'm just jumping up and down, but it's actually a lot faster to do that rather than just running. You have to make sure you have to keep a good rhythm as you're jumping. You can't just hold up and right. There's a certain place that I usually just watch the back of his arm to know when I jump. And yeah, a lot of this game is making sure that your small movements are pristine. That's where all the frames come off, and then that adds up to seconds, which adds up to bopping other people on the leaderboard. So that's honestly the main focus of the speed game, and I think that is very easily misinterpreted, but there are a lot of cool tracks and tight movement, or cool tricks and tight movement in this game that I think a lot of people would be impressed with. And I think I should talk about the early speedrunning scene of this game, which is what people were really impressed with way back in the day in 2010. After the game came out, a few select runners sort of like took their aim at the game, and they were able to start beating this game without any deaths, and starting to do it pretty fast. So these early speedruns of this game got hundreds of thousands of views, and I think there's a couple or maybe one that has more than 1 million views. And it's because this game it's a puzzle platforming game, and if you don't figure out the puzzle and you do something wrong, it's typically going to kill you. You either get bitten by a bear trap like you can see there, or you'll fall into a pit of spikes. And that's what this game is known for. Is known for killing people a lot in their casual runs. So when people were suddenly able to beat it with such skill, it was really impressive to a lot of different people. And as time has progressed, there's been more runners coming in, more tricks being found, and people keep raising that bar to a higher level and a higher level. So it just keeps getting better and better. And I really think with the community that's built up over time, I'd really love to expose this game to such a wide audience that AGDQ has, and hopefully use it to raise some money. So I'm going to talk about why I think that this is a good game for a race. After I explain this trick I'm doing here. It's called tree skip. It's the first big trick in the run. It involves a movement tech called a reverse momentum jump, or I'll just refer to it as an RMJ from here on out. I actually get it third try in this run. It's pretty inconsistent, honestly, but the fact that it's in the beginning of the run is what causes the people that are going for competitive times in the leaderboards to go for it. Yeah, I got it third try, which is acceptable. That saves about 6 seconds over doing it the normal way, while if you got a first try, it would save about 35 seconds. That's really the only inconsistent trick in this run that can lose you a solid chunk of time. So in a race setting, I'm not sure if we'd go for it, or if we just agree, go for it 3 times, and if you don't get it, then just go the normal way. But aside from that, this game is a perfect game for a race. I've participated in a few races and watched a couple, and they're really interesting because the game really relies on the small movement optimizations, and some of those optimizations can be really difficult to get and don't yield that much of a time save. But when you're behind in a race, or you're trying to bop someone on a leaderboard, sometimes it's kind of necessary to go for those things. So that can create an interesting dynamic in the race. If the guy's in first doesn't have to go for the crazy stuff, while the guy behind is trying to haul his butt as fast as he can. So, and yeah, another thing about the race is that the game isn't that punishing. As I said, This game meant for you to die quite a bit as you play through casually, so if you do come across a death in a speedrun, it only sets you back about 10 seconds. So that can easily get gained back by the other runner. Um, if that person who was ahead makes a mistake and then suddenly they're even, because typically you'll consistently lose about 10 to 15 to 20 seconds if you make a mistake in this game. It's nothing that's make or break, you know, it's not a 3-minute big mistake that could cause a blowout and then be boring for the race, for the marathon. So as you can see, I think that's kind of wrapping up the introduction I wanted to give to the Limbo and the speedrun community and why I think it's a proper game for a race. I explained the RMJ. It's just if you're going in a certain direction and then you hold up in the other direction directly afterwards, you keep that momentum of where you were running and then instantly jump the other way. And with tree skip, it can transfer that momentum oddly onto the box. And because the box is like such a perfect weight and geometry of the box is perfect, it can just barely launch you all the way across that pond, which makes you skip just going up in a tree. So that's why it's called tree skip. Now I'm just hopping around as a small ball of wool, pretty much, or spider web. This part isn't too easy. Isn't too difficult. Pretty easy. Obviously, this part is a lot of downtime. This might be a good place for a donation if it were in the marathon. The only part that can get you is, I don't know if you caught it, but there's a little pit I had to jump over, and sometimes that causes you to have to make little adjustment jumps, and then if you fall in the pit, it's pretty agonizing, especially after a good first try tree skip, and then you just throw it away the next time you do it. Obviously, it only loses 6 seconds, so it's not throwing it away. It can just really tilt you and put you off your game. Anyway, we have another cool trick coming up here in a little bit. It's called falling bear trap skip, and you skip a falling bear trap, and it's pretty simple. It's one of the easier tricks. You just have to move with some good timing and then make a good jump. I know I get it in this run. Yeah, you just make sure your forehead doesn't clip into the bear trap and you get your head chopped off. And then now we're just moving on to this little bit of platforming. There's a jump here. You'll see I'll get the long climb. You can actually get the shorter climb if you do that jump correctly, and that's just like an example of the movement that's in this game. You gotta focus on every jump. You gotta really make sure. If you get a long climb, that loses like half a second right there, and yeah, that can mean a lot when it all adds up. Oh, one thing I should add is that me and the runner I'm submitting this with, Sad David, are both really into this game. We both practice it a lot, and we both have competitive times on the leaderboards, so I think we're both qualified to be running this game. Anyway, I gotta explain this next trick. It's called tire skip, and we're skipping the tire. So as you know, these first 3 tricks have been named exactly what we're doing, but pretty soon you might see that that's not the case. Anyway, that's tire skip. It's a burning tire that rolls into you and will kill you on contact unless you jump on a weird part of it. You can get over it without hurting yourself. It's a pretty standard difficulty trick. It can seem kind of inconsistent, but I've been able to get it pretty consistently. And then there's this area. I actually recently found a trick in this area that allows you to skip all this platforming, climbing up the rope, and then going across the platforms up top there by grabbing one of those swinging bear traps. So it just goes to show that there's new stuff and new strats being found in this game to this day, and I really would like to see the community grow. But yeah, I don't go for it. I had found that trick before I did this run, but it's probably the most difficult trick in the game, so no one really does it in an RTA run. So now we just got some downtime waiting for the spider. The spider has been a recurring character so far, but pretty soon, once we're done with all of his legs, we'll be done with him in general. We just end up ripping all his legs off and then pushing his body into a pit, and it's pretty satisfying, especially after he's killed you so many times in a casual run. Yeah, this game is meant to give off a little bit of a creepy atmosphere. That's why it's monochromatic. You have spiders and you have spikes and you have things trying to get you, and you're jumping in spider webs all the time. But as a speedrunner, you kind of just have to blow all past it. And the audio design in this game is just amazing, and I'm really kind of bummed that I had to mute this video so I could do this audio over it. But yeah, it is what it is. I'm sure if you want, if you've heard me raving about it, you can go check out just a regular Limbo run and listen to the game. Here you just want to make sure you catch the slope at the right place so you can get an optimal jump off of it, and then you run back and you finally pick off the spider. And this next part here, you use his body as a nice method of transportation. If you climb up the body as you push it into the pit at the right time, you can get a nice boost that sends you over the ledge that you're trying to get to, and it can save some time. I don't get it in this run, but you can kind of see what it would look like if I did get it. I would just get a lot better of a boost. That time I had to do the climbing animations, so I would have lost time if Sad David were in a race right now and he got it. Coming up is the crow box. This is a really interesting part of movement. A lot of people have tried to perfect a setup on getting this box to fall exactly where we want it. As you can see, I just jump on it and kind of ride it a little bit and try to make it fall down that slope without me pushing it. I don't exactly get it in this run, but that's just one of the movement techs that you have to pay attention to. And coming up here, I'm kind of disappointed I didn't get it as well. It's this little tiny slope that you have to jump on, and you get a little bit of a boost, and it looks pretty cool if you get it in a run, but it's not too precise. I just mess it up. There's this part where you come across the bullies for the first time. Actually, no, the bullies for the first time was back at the tire when they were throwing fire tires at you and swinging bear traps at you. But this is the first time you get up close and personal with one, and it's just corpses, and you're dragging them, using them to your advantage. You've now used 2 carcasses and 1 corpse to your advantage in this game, and we're only 12 minutes in, so it's quite a wild ride. It's pretty fun. Now we're just coming up to these big traps that if I wasn't a speedrunner I would have been crushed, but I already knew where the triggers were, so it was all good. And there's the bullies that will try to shoot you with their blowpipes, but you just use their giant piston traps against them. I don't know if it's necessarily theirs. These traps seem pretty futuristic. Or not just futuristic, it's just too complicated for a couple of bullies to make. But yeah, you just gotta learn to use the world as your resource in this game and try to do it as fast as possible. I'm just focused on movement here, but here is another part that's pretty interesting. It's just movement tech again, just making sure that you can get everything where you want it in a quick manner. These things are really timing oriented. You want to get them so they line up so you can just barely get underneath without breaking your neck. And as you can see in this run, it's very close. I give myself quite the haircut, but it all works out in the end. I just gotta leave that last one up a little bit, and yeah, you can see I almost got my neck crushed into my shoulders, but we were all good. Coming up next is Colette Skip. It's named after, this one's not named after what it's actually skipping. It's named after a runner who found it, Darth Colette. It was found by accident. You just jumped up and got the worm bitten off her head, but now we found a setup for it. For a long time it didn't have a setup, but Sad David came in and found the setup for it. I actually got it in this run. It saves a lot of time. It saves about 10 seconds. It looks like it's supposed to happen when you just do it, but you're actually supposed to push a box over and then be able to get it to bite it off your head. And as you saw, I don't know if you caught it, I did a quick movement underneath the worm, and it skipped a turnaround animation of the worm. That saves about 1 to 2 seconds, and I think I get most of the worm turns in this run, so those are always exciting. Just small optimizations, and they're pretty precise. I'm surprised that worked there. I had to hold the lever for a little bit longer to be safe, but I ended up getting the gold split there. That was exciting. Just moving on to this puzzle. This puzzle is actually, I have bad memories. I was on one of the best runs of my life after a first try tree skip and everything else went perfectly, you know. You just gotta make sure you get the first try tree skip, you get the falling bear trap skip, you get the tire skip, you get Colette, and then you're on a solid run. I was really far ahead, and then I messed up this puzzle. Even though it's seemingly simple, when you're trying to go fast, you can screw it up, and killed the whole run. But in a marathon setting, it wouldn't kill the run. It killed the run while I was going for a PB. Here's just some more jumping up and down, making sure I'm keeping the good rhythm. And the movement, honestly, is kind of slow in this part, but the visuals, I think, are very entertaining. It's just two auto scrollers right next in a row, so. Right, sorry, there's gonna be a cut there. I just had to go deal with something. But as I was saying, it's two auto scrollers, and both just dealing with a rising water level. You can have some fun in this area. I might show off climbing up and down in this box, can get Limbo stuck in this little squatting animation during the marathon. You can just have some fun. Probably a good time for some donations here because we're just sitting there watching Limbo slowly float upwards. Maybe I'll reach over and mess with Sad David's keyboard so he'll fall into the water if I'm behind. There's a lot of different opportunities for speed tech in this area, especially in a race setting where you're sitting next to your opponent. Oh, yeah, I just made a dumb mistake there. Would have lost me some time. But here we go. Big old jump, and then on to the next auto scroller, but soon we'll be done with it. There's some fun things you can do in this area too, just running around on the top, getting all the way around, and then hopefully you can get back to the buoy in time to catch it. Usually you can. It'd be dumb to lose the run to just messing around, but you know, sometimes you get bored during an auto scroller. But yeah, now once I make this jump off this crate, we'll be done with the rising water levels. This jump is you gotta either play it safe or play it risky, and yeah, it's really easy to end up missing the ledge and then falling into the water and drowning. I haven't done it in a while though. Here's a puzzle. It's all about recognizing some visual cues and then letting go of the water as early as possible to where you can still make that jump up there. I don't think I've ever messed it up to where I've missed a jump. I'm sure when I first started running I did, but not for a while. It'd be really unfortunate if I just jinxed myself there though. Next run I do, I'm just gonna completely fail. I have missed this jump though. It was heartbreaking. That jump from the floating crate up to that thing. My ankles were too submerged in the water, and then as I tried to make a jump, it was really unfortunate. So here, this kind of shows how the worm turns work, like I was explaining earlier. If you're already facing left, it doesn't play a turnaround animation. So that's why when you turn around at the exact right time, the worm gets to your head, but you're already turned around. So it doesn't play the animation. But right there, we just use the climbing down animation on the box to make sure that we're already turned left and we don't spend any time doing the animation. You'll see what I'm talking about here. When he's in the light, he just kind of jerks his head for a little bit and then turns around. Yeah, it would have looked like that. It's a little bit longer when the worm first goes onto your head though. So again, here's a I said we were done with the rising water levels, but here's another one. Then we will finally be done, I promise. We'll move on to some pretty interesting areas actually. Once we get to the tire factory, the game really starts to pick up quite a bit. Yeah, now we're just waiting for the pipe to come up and greet us again. And then, oh yeah, I gotta explain the worms. The worms force you to only walk in a certain direction, so that's what that's doing to me. I'm explaining all the speed tech and I'm just completely glossing over the main gameplay of the game. I'm sorry. But yeah, I'm just looking up at my time, at my splits right now. I was plus 24 after the third try tree skip. And I'm just trying to whittle that down as much as I can. It seems to be working. Next up, we have the hotel sign, which is pretty iconic part of the run. It's after some roof platforming. Once we climb up a big pole, we'll get to it. This is just, again, movement, making sure we don't get hard landings. I don't know if I explained a hard landing, but yeah, if you hit the ground too abruptly, Limbo will kind of like stumble on the ground a little bit, and then it will cause you to lose time. So you try to avoid that at all costs. Here's the hotel sign, and the interesting thing about this is there's a switch here that sometimes, it's never happened to me, but as you switch it, it can just kill you. And there's a race of this game at ESA, and it happened to one of the runners, and it was just so insane. It was hilarious. It's a terrible memory for him, so I shouldn't say it's hilarious, but yeah, it's something that has happened before. I 100% doubt it will happen in a marathon setting because I've never experienced it, but if it did, that would be hilarious because it would be the curse of the marathon. Anyway, yeah, we get past the hotel sign, but that's not the last we're gonna see of it. We actually have to do some tight movement on the big H at the end of the run as well. Yeah, for now I'm just there's a lot of opportunities to get some hard falls there to where Limbo would stumble, but I avoided them all. And I don't use the most updated movement tech in this. That was a little hard fall there. As you saw, I kind of just stopped in my tracks for a little bit. But I don't use all the most updated movement tech in this area. I could definitely do a little bit better. But you just gotta tap that thing. I love that wall. You can just tap it with like the slightest bit of your hair and it will fall over. Here's another opportunity for a worm turn. That one's pretty difficult because there's nothing you can look at on the floor for a good visual cue. But I still got it. I was pretty proud of myself. And the upcoming next is the biggest section of just jumping up and down. So this would be a great place for a donation. It's about a minute long. Just making sure I'm keeping a good rhythm. Coming up after this big section, we have just some moving around on some hanging pipes, and then we get into the tire factory area. I think this game is very pretty, and watching. Actually, I don't know if that hard fall, if just walking off the edge to avoid that hard fall is more optimal or making the big jump off the edge. I'm just looking back on that now. But yeah, just some hanging pipes and this big saw that's coming up. But yeah, as I was saying, I think that just watching this game being beat with fluid movement is very entertaining. I've always loved tuning into streams of this game. But yeah, you want to make sure you spend as little time on that box as possible. Get over the saw, get the worm off your head, and then get back over the saw in a timely manner. Sometimes you cut that jump too early and you cut your ankles off, and it's really unfortunate. There's actually a trick here that if you clip, you can cause like Limbo's feet to clip into the seesaw that's going on right here, and it'll cause it to freak out and shoot up very fast, and then it can skip running back and forth to get it swinging like you have to. So it saves about 5 seconds, but it's pretty difficult to get, so I don't go for it in this run. I don't think there's any runs in the leaderboards that have it in there, but it's not completely out of the picture. Just after a good tree skip, I'm kind of scared to do it. So now that we finally got the worm off of our heads that was forcing us to go right, we can go back and get this box that is necessary. And just try to ride this elevator as quick as possible. As you can see, I let go of the box and then go back and grab it. It's one of the golden rules of Limbo speedrunning. You just want to be dragging and pushing boxes as little as possible because it can cause some
It's very slow movement. So just get the edge barely over that, and then I like to jump off the edge of the box and pull it a little bit. Some other people do different strats there. But here we just want to keep optimal movement to where we'll get onto the rope in the perfect amount of time, and then we just gotta make a good swing. There's other like optimal movement strats that I think that I can incorporate into this run. I know this run is from about a month ago, this PB. Think I've been getting a lot better at this game. I've just been running other categories. Um, Sad David's PB is a 39.50 compared to this one, which is a 40.57, but I think I can perform a lot better. And getting a 39.50 is very impressive. So here we go. We're almost in the good old tire factory portion. Gotta deal with the bug though. The bug is a really interesting part of the speedrun because if you move a little too much, then he'll fly away, but you want to keep it in the golden ratio to where you can not spook the bug enough to where he starts to flight, and then you jump and then grab the bottom of his leg, because if you grab the middle of his leg, if you grab too high on his leg, it'll cause you to lose like 2 seconds. The middle of his leg cause you to lose like half a second. So you really want to get that golden range to where he starts to fly, and then you just barely grab his leg, but because the way he shakes his leg, the animations are different. So it's really kind of cool. You want to cut it close to the best of your ability, just to save that extra amount of time. Here it's I was really safe in moving the box there far enough, but I certainly spent a little more time than I could have on that box. Again, it's just making sure you're keeping your movement quick and concise and not pulling anything for longer than you need to. So you'll see me with this second little tire carrying mechanism. I climb up earlier than I actually could have pushed that for a little bit less, but I climb up before I actually hit the edge there, just to try to save some time. And then here's a nice strat. Usually it'll take a lot longer in a casual playthrough, but you want to keep that tire up there just long enough to pull the box under and then hang off of it, and then use your feet to kind of slide it out from underneath the door as it goes up and down. It's a cool mechanic it's a cool way the mechanics of this game interact and then create an interesting strategy for the speedrun. And then here, you want to do your best to make these two boxes land on top of each other, so it creates kind of an elevated plane for the top box, and then it'll roll a lot farther and then minimize the amount of time you have to push it. I think I mess it up in this run. Yeah, as you can see, I screw it up. So I have to pull the box quite a bit. It's one of the bigger mistakes in this run, but it does look really nice when you get it, because you can't go too fast, you can't go too slow, otherwise you're not going to get them to stack up correctly. But it's only about a 5-second time loss, I believe. And then up next is the chain, and after that is something called alien skip, which is you're not skipping any aliens in the game. There's no aliens. It's just named after the guy who found it, and that's seemingly what we do in a Limbo community. It's either an exact description of what we're skipping or named after whoever found it. Alien is one of the old boys of Limbo speedrunning. I don't think he does it anymore, but he's done a lot for the community. I think he definitely deserves to have a trick named after him. So here we go. In this part, you'll see the whole entire world of Limbo starts to shift, and you use that to your ability to get under a door just in the nick of time. It looks like your neck is going to snap, kind of like that one puzzle earlier, right before Colette skip, with the pulleys and the cart. But it's the hardest trick in this game that's still consistent. Like tree skip is inconsistent, but it's not super hard. This trick takes hours of practice and dedication to get correctly, and I think this is the first time I actually got it in a run. You want to get the button as late as possible, and then you need to focus on exactly how far apart your feet are to make sure your jumps are correct,
and you can just get under. You see my head gets caught up a little bit, but that saves a ton of time, and I was like super happy about it. See me smiling up in the top right, and my heart was beating. I think I show my hands. I'm like, oh my god. I'm like, holy crap. That was like I spent hours and hours practicing that trick, and then I go in, and then that's the first time I had ever came up to it in a run. I was super excited about it. I think I had Dave was watching me right now, and he's like, "Wow, nice job." And he's gonna be, I'm sure he's gonna be salty as I nail that trick and beat him in the run in the race at AGDQ. But that's just the way the cookie crumbles. So here's just you want to make that jump and then not get the hard landing. That was pretty good. I'm surprised. Yeah, that was a pretty good little movement there. It's all like you really wanna focus on everything that can cause you to gain or lose time in this game, because aside from the big tricks, that's that's where you're saving your time. It's in the little bits. So up next we just have some more movement throughout the game. Some nice butterflies. The butterflies are nice chains of art. Right now we're just surrounded by gears. And here's another worm turn. I nailed it. Yeah, I got all the worm turns in this run, which is pretty hype. But as you see, that was the whole point of this game is to go find your sister. There's not really any more backstory other than that. I think the exact description is like destined or set out on a journey to find his sister, a boy enters Limbo. So that's all we know. But as you can see, the fake sister is no longer there, and it's just gears and pulleys and giant things trying to crush you. This next segment here is what we call the troll box area. It's because the box rolls out differently pretty much every time you get into this area. You just gotta hope that you don't get the bad position. There is a way to save the bad position, and most of the good runners are really consistent at it. But I got the good one there. I can easily make that cycle. But if you do mess it up, you have to wait for the whole other cycle, which loses some time. It's pretty annoying. Here is this part took me forever to learn when I first started speedrunning this game. Sorry for the frame drops. Yeah, it's just this is just a VOD of. Ooh, yeah, that was really close. I grabbed that ladder, but yeah, this is just a VOD. And here's something called cellular skip. I screwed it up actually. If you do it correctly, the gear kind of clips oddly, and then you can get up earlier than you're supposed to. Saves a good amount of time. But so far in this run, this is a pretty good run, other than the third try tree skip, which lost me a very solid chunk of time, and some small movement discrepancies that you probably saw me make throughout this run. Hopefully I can improve this before January 7th comes around. And coming up next is the cart. There's a method of cart boosting that you can jump on the very edge of the cart, and it can cause your trip to be about 3 seconds faster. But I was way too scared to go for it, because if you mess up, it's just doing an RMJ over and over and over again, and it's not that difficult to mess up an RMJ. And if you mess up, you just fall right down to the electricity track and you die and lose a ton of time. So if you're really confident in your RMJs, then you want to do the cart boost. But at the time of recording, I was like, I'm not going for it, man. I was like, no way. But yeah, you just use your feet to pull that cart out a little bit, and then you have enough time to make it before that cart pushes that button. And as you'll see, that little area lights up with electricity. So that's just the little puzzle there. Coming up next, we have something called dark skip. It just skips having to go up and pull a box and then using it to your advantage to get past some electricity areas. But it's just a well-timed jump, again using as the world turns to your advantage. You just set yourself up by going in between. There's a nice visual cue and audio cue. But yeah, you make that jump there.
Saves a solid amount of time. So now we're kind of approaching on the end game. Uh, this area is very cool, and I'll have you know that I just entered the trigger to where something that's on a cycle. There's this thing called the piston. It's the big piston um, that moves on a 10-second cycle each time. So if you mess up, it might be like a second. It might be like it'll cost you a second at the time. But if that causes you to cycle, suddenly that mistake becomes a 10-second mistake. So there's this trick coming up called Z-box, which is movement that is necessary to get you an earlier cycle. I get it right there. Um, Usually the puzzle requires you to push the box the other way and then wait for it to slide all the way back down. But right there you can use some precise visual cues to get yourself in the box up at the same time. And then here it's just some good movement throughout. And coming up after these puzzles is something called the big room, which is one of the most practiced areas in Limbo speedrunning. It's really interesting. And the top speedrunner, the guy who has all the world records, um, Parhelion, he's done a ton of work for this game, done a ton of strat finding. He spent a lot of time to create a big compiled image of the entire big room, and then made a just sort of a large picture that describes all the strats and goes into detail, and it's really cool. That's just something that shows the dedication of the Limbo speedrunning community, and how much we all love this game. So here's the big room. It starts off with some elevator movement that I screw up right away, but that doesn't cause me a piston cycle, luckily. Right here you just want to climb up, get your head into where it will shoot down that cart and to shoot down that box, and then you move fast enough to get underneath the box. And you'll see me do a little jump, because sometimes if the box just falls down on your head, it'll break your neck, but if you jump into the box, it'll negate that. So here we're just guiding this box with some gravity, and then pushing it to where a very specific position in the ground. And I didn't get exactly where I want it in this run, but it still ends up being okay. And you keep it in a very specific position, because we're going to use gravity switches up at the top to carry the box to us very quickly without us having it. Like typically you would switch the gravity switch, you'd have to run all the way over to the box and then pull it all the way over to where you want. But by using the geometry of the ground, the box bounces in a way that's both the boxes bounce in ways that are very helpful to the speedrun. And then you'll see it comes flying I didn't know it was going to be that good of a bounce, but it came flying all the way to me. So I had to adjust that first box a little bit. And yeah, I knew I was going to be able to get this piston cycle here. So I'm going to be, at this point, I'm very far ahead of my PB. And I'm encroaching on the end of the run. Pretty exciting stuff. I don't jump off the edge of that because for some reason it's killed a couple runners. I definitely won't jump off during AGDQ. It saves a little bit of time to jump off there, and it'll kill you probably 1 out of 20 times, but you know, I could definitely go through this area a little bit faster. I was just really nervous, being honest. I was freaking out. My heart was pounding. I had 2 golds in a row, and I was ahead by 23 seconds, and things were looking up. This puzzle is pretty cool. There's a lot of ways to optimize it, but I just do the normal way. And then here is where we meet the hotel sign for the second time. And there's actually a way with this big H, it like shocks you with electricity and then goes away and then shocks with electricity again. There's a way to beat it in one cycle. So you just hop on and then go really fast and hop off of it. But I didn't do it in this run. It looks really nice though if you do get it. And then yeah, this is the part that haunts me to this day. I've never died on this before, but yeah, as I just said, it's gonna be the end of me. Even speedrunners are not immune to deaths in this game. For some reason, the box threw me down at a speed fast enough to kill me. Um, but yeah, I didn't let it dampen my mood too much because I thought I could still PB, and I did, just not by 23 seconds like I'd like to. I just go back to I don't do this strat at all anymore, just out of spite. I do a little bit of a safer strat that's probably like a tenth of a second slower, but at this point I'm just tired of it. And coming up next we have something called box clip, which is probably one of the cooler looking glitches in this game. It's not. It is a glitch. It's you clip through the entire box here, and it skips a lot of time getting all the way around it. It's a very easy setup though. You just want to move. You want to do the setup and nothing else, and you'll fly through the ground. It looks really nice. And here we're coming up on the last jump of the game. It's a very dramatic bust through the window type thing. Um, it'll be coming up here in a little bit, and I'm just staring at my timer here. I'm like, oh my god, there goes all my time save. It's the saddest day of my life. But here we go. I press the button and then bust through the window, and that is my current. Yeah, as you can see, I'm not very happy. But this is my current any percent PB for this game, and this is the route that we're going to be submitting for AGDQ. I hope that you've been able to see what Limbo has to offer and why it's a good game for the marathon. And yeah, I guess that's it. Thanks for watching, and thanks for taking Limbo into consideration.